They laughed when he said my name. To my cousin, Collins Avery, our brave little pilot nurse who saves cats stuck in trees. The crowd roared, glasses clinked, and for a second I couldn't tell if the sound was celebration or cruelty. My uncle, the Navy SEAL legend everyone worshipped, just stood there, silent, watching me like I was a ghost at my own funeral. I smiled, the kind of smile you wear when your heart splits quietly in two. That night, surrounded by laughter and smoke, I realized, in this family, silence hurts louder than bullets. And someday, that silence would break, with my name on it. Bozeman's summer sun hit harder than I remembered, the kind that made the air shimmer above the grass. Smoke drifted from the grill, and voices tangled over the hum of a country song. I hadn't been home in over a year, and my mother's text still glowed on my phone. "We're so proud of you, and honey, family's throwing you a welcome home BBQ." For a second, I almost believed her, but when I stepped through the gate, I saw the banner stretched across the patio, bold red letters shouting, "Congratulations, Liam, new host of Voices of Valor." The laughter, the camera crew, the table full of polished smiles. None of it was for me. Liam stood at the center, beer in hand, his charm perfectly staged for the local news crew, filming the SEAL family barbecue. Beside him, my Uncle Douglas turned the ribs on the grill, his face unreadable beneath the smoke. When Liam spotted me, he raised his glass. "Let's toast to my cousin Collins, our fearless helicopter medic who saves cats stuck in trees." The laughter hit like gravel. I smiled just enough to survive it, fingers tightening around a glass of lemonade until my knuckles burned. I looked toward Douglas, waiting for him to stop it. One word, that's all I needed. But he only turned the meat, eyes fixed on the fire. By the time I walked past him to leave, he spoke so low it almost vanished in the crackle of the coals. I saw the report from Yemen. I froze. He shouldn't have known. Before I could answer, he turned away, half his face lit by fire, half swallowed by shadow. Driving off. The laughter still echoed in my ears. I glanced at my hands on the steering wheel, scarred, steady, the same hands that once gripped it through a storm of gunfire, and whispered to myself, "Funny how real battles never make the news." The memory of home always smelled like cut grass and motor oil. Our house sat at the edge of Bozeman's barley fields, where summer dust clung to everything, windowsills, photo frames, even people's pride. Every June, the Averys gathered at my uncle's backyard, a ritual they called the Avery Legacy. The men grilled and laughed, while the women passed salad bowls and kept the stories alive. Tales of Douglas Avery, the Navy SEAL who'd once faced down storms in the Persian Gulf and lived to grin about it. His medals covered an entire wall, next to the folded flag in its perfect glass triangle. As a kid, I was the one crouched beside the lawnmower, unscrewing parts just to see how they fit together. Every time I did, someone would call out, "That's not ladylike, Collins." It became a kind of family chorus, equal parts joke and warning. Liam, of course, never needed fixing. He was the golden boy, the quarterback, the future broadcaster, the son who carried his father's swagger like an heirloom. People in town called him Douglas's boy, and I used to think that if I worked hard enough, I could earn that same look of pride from my uncle. Then my father fell from a maintenance rig at the mill, and everything changed. I quit my flight training in Texas, came home, and spent a year feeding him soup through trembling hands, changing dressings, holding him steady while he tried to stand. When my relatives threw a dinner to thank the family, the first toast went to Liam. He'd driven 6 hours from Denver to visit once a month. "That's commitment," someone said. I smiled because it was easier than screaming. No one noticed the calluses on my hands or the nights I sat awake counting my father's breaths. One evening, near the end, I heard my father's voice drift through the half-open door. Fragile but certain. Collins would have made one hell of a pilot. I pressed my back against the wall and cried quietly, not out of grief, but out of something sharper. Resolve. That was the night I decided I would leave Montana and fly, no matter what it cost. When he died, I found my old flight school ticket buried under bills and sympathy cards. I folded it once, then told my mother, "I'm done being the one who stays." I didn't realize then that leaving would mean trading one battlefield for another. The desert of New Mexico didn't forgive softness. At Holloman Air Force Base, the air stung with grit and jet fuel, and every breath felt earned. Training was a blur of sleepless nights, night swims in freezing water, parachute drills, and desert runs until my legs screamed. I learned to stitch wounds, to land a chopper in blinding dust, to trust my hands more than my heartbeat. The rotor blades became the only music that made sense. Then came Yemen, a rescue mission gone sideways. Night sky split by tracer fire, sand burning in my teeth. Our Black Hawk took a direct hit, RPG through the tail. The cockpit filled with smoke, alarms blaring, voices shouting over the comms. I gripped the stick until my knuckles tore. "We hold. Maintain altitude." The words weren't bravery. They were muscle memory. Somehow, we landed. 7 men lived because of it. One of them a SEAL from Team 3. Afterward, that SEAL found me in the hangar, still shaking, and pressed his hand to my shoulder. "You're a damn Stonewall, ma'am. The ridge held because of you." The name stuck, whispered in quiet circles. A secret medal no one could pin on me. The mission was sealed, classified, buried under numbers and signatures. Back home, the others received medals and speeches. I got a letter of commendation folded neatly into an envelope. I smiled for the photo. But inside, the silence was deafening. I saved men who'll never say my name. That night, I stood on the runway under a blood-orange sky, the desert wind clawing at my uniform. Dust rose around me, like the ghosts of every flight that almost didn't make it. I thought, I built wings out of dust. Maybe that's what real wings are. Dust that refused to fall. And for the first time, I felt both weightless and completely alone. 2 months after that barbecue, the laughter from that night still echoed somewhere in me, muted but heavy. Liam had become a local celebrity, the face of Voices of Valor, a talk show built on other people's courage. Every billboard in Bozeman showed his grin and the tagline, "Stories of America's Heroes." It was ironic, seeing his face plastered over something I'd actually lived through. My mother called one night while I was still on base in Malmstrom. She sounded proud in that way only mothers do when the family name flashes on TV. "Your cousin's show is doing so well. He's having your uncle on this week." I didn't answer. I'd learned by now that in my family, success only counted when someone else was watching. When the taping came around, I sat quietly in the back row. The studio lights glared hot as Liam leaned forward, his smile sharp and rehearsed. "What's it like being a real hero?" "Dad?" he asked. "And do you think the younger generation still has that fire?" Douglas took a breath, eyes distant for a beat too long. "Some still do," he said finally. "Most just don't get to talk about it." The room shifted. Even Liam blinked, thrown off rhythm. He didn't realize the one who couldn't speak sat only a few feet away. After the show, reporters swarmed around Liam like moths. He spotted me in the corner and smirked. "Maybe next episode, we'll feature you, Collins. You can show us how to deliver first aid, or teach folks how to fly gently in circles." Laughter rippled through the crowd. I looked straight at him. At least I don't circle around my own father's shadow. The silence that followed was instant and cold. Even Douglas didn't move. That night, back home, a thick envelope waited on my kitchen table, stamped with the crest of the U.S. Air Force. Inside, a letter. "Major Collins Avery is hereby nominated for the Distinguished Flying Cross. Ceremony to be held privately." At the bottom, the signature that stopped my breath. "Recommendation by Master Chief Douglas Avery, Ret. Shea. SEAL Team 3. The man who couldn't defend me in public had honored me in secret. Gratitude and fury fought in my chest. He helped me in silence, but still left me to bleed under everyone's laughter." I stepped outside. Montana's night wind cut across the plains, humming low through the trees. Maybe silence was a language of its own. I just wasn't sure I wanted to hear it anymore. Autumn came to Montana with honey-colored light and the faint smell of burnt leaves. One afternoon, my mother called again. "He wants to talk," she said. I drove the narrow road out to my uncle's house, past the same fields that had watched me grow up and leave. Douglas sat on the porch, a beer can unopened beside him. The air between us felt brittle, stretched too thin by years of words unsaid. "You've been flying how long now?" he asked. 12 years. He nodded. Longer than I was in the teams. Silence lingered. Then he asked, "Do you still hear it? The wind? When the rotors stop?" "Every night," I said quietly. "Then you haven't forgotten." He leaned forward, eyes softer now. "That seal you pulled out in Yemen, he was one of mine. He told me about the pilot who held the ridge. He called you Stonewall." The world tilted a little. My throat tightened, but no words came. Douglas dropped his gaze to the porch floor. "I should have told them. Told everyone. But Liam, he's proud. Collins, I didn't want to break him." I stood, the air sharp in my lungs. "You broke me instead." For a moment, he looked 10 years older. His hand trembled, then stilled. No excuse came. Only the hum of the wind moving through the wheat behind the house. As I reached my car, his voice followed, low but clear. "There's a fundraiser next week. Come, please." "Why?" I asked without turning. "Because silence needs a witness." The words hit me harder than any insult ever had. I didn't know if he meant to confess, or to give me the stage he'd denied for so long. But as I drove away, the wind pressed against the car, fierce and constant, whispering his words back to me. Silence needs a witness. A week after our talk, my mother called again, her voice soft with persuasion. "It'll mean a lot to your uncle. Just smile for once." So I went. The fundraiser glittered under chandeliers, red and blue lights flashing against polished glass. Honoring Our Heroes hung above the stage while Liam soaked up applause. Microphone in hand, the perfect imitation of valor. Douglas sat rigid at the front. I stayed in the back. Plain black dress, small Air Force pin catching the light. Liam's voice rang through the crowd. "We have our own Air Force hero here tonight, my cousin Collins, who keeps people alive so real heroes can finish the job." Laughter rose, sharp as broken glass. Douglas's hand tightened around his drink. I stayed still, remembering his words. "Silence needs a witness." Then a man's gravelly voice cut through the noise. "Still holding that ridge? Stonewall?" I turned. "Garrison, the seal from Yemen." The room froze. "Excuse me?" Liam stammered. "Stonewall," Garrison said. "She flew through hell for us." Liam forced a laugh. "She never saw combat. No mistake." Garrison replied, "I still have her voice in my comms. We hold, we hold." The crowd stared. Douglas stayed silent, trapped between guilt and pride. Liam's mask cracked. "You're stealing valor, Collins." I stood. I never had to pretend. "Liam, you did that for both of us." The silence swallowed everything. I walked out. Garrison caught up, pressing a card into my hand. Some debts can only be repaid by speaking. That night, rain beat against my windshield as I drove to Douglas's house. The only light came from the basement, inside. The flight recorder waited. I pressed play, static, gunfire, my voice shouting, "We hold!" Douglas stood behind me. "You weren't supposed to hear that." "Why keep it?" "Because truth hurts the ones who need it most." He hesitated, then said, "Next week's engagement, BBQ. The cameras will be there. This time, I'm done being quiet." When I stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The wind no longer screamed, it was waiting. A week later, Bozeman Country Club gleamed like a movie set. Rows of flags, gold lights strung across manicured grass, and cameras waiting for another Avery celebration. I hadn't planned to go, but my mother's words still rang in my head. "If you don't go, they'll say you're bitter. If you do, you'll show them you're better." So I came, wearing navy, The small Air Force pin on my chest, not for pride, but for proof of where I truly belonged. Liam stood in the center, microphone in hand, his smile polished for television. Let's toast to family, legacy, and courage, the Avery way. Cheers erupted. Then he turned, eyes glinting toward me. And to my cousin Collins, our brave Air Force chauffeur. May she never run out of seatbelts. Laughter thundered. Cameras panned across my face. I set my glass down. The sound cracked through the noise like a warning. They didn't give me a seatbelt in Yemen, I said evenly. But they gave me a name, Stonewall. The laughter died. Wind rippled through the flags. Liam's grin stiffened. Stonewall? Sounds like a bar in New York. No, I said, voice low and sharp. It's the ridge you hold when hell opens fire. Douglas rose from his chair, half his face in light, half in shadow, the same way I'd first seen him months ago. He tossed his spatula onto the grass. Apologize. Now. Liam went pale. Dad, she's lying! Douglas's voice boomed like thunder. She's the pilot who saved 7 SEALs in Yemen, my brothers. They call her Stonewall because when hell came for them, she held the sky. Silence. Then the faint hiss of a grill reigniting. Foot. A reporter stepped forward, microphone still live. I looked at him and said quietly, I never asked to be called a hero. I just didn't want to be treated like a joke. From the back. Garrison's voice rose. She saved my team. I was there. The name Stonewall isn't fiction. It's blood and steel. The first clap came hesitant. Then another, until applause rolled like thunder over the stunned crowd. Liam collapsed into his chair, his fiancée walking out without a word. Douglas's eyes met mine, glassy but proud. I stepped away from the lights, toward the lake. The glow of the fire shimmered on the water. For once, the flames didn't burn me. They lit the truth. Morning came gray and quiet, the kind of stillness that follows a storm. Douglas's house smelled faintly of burnt coffee and cold air. I knocked once. When he opened the door, he looked 10 years older than the night before. Eyes rimmed red, voice rough from too many words swallowed down. He sank into his chair with a heavy sigh. My silence broke you, he said. It did, I answered, but it also kept me alive. Collins, I didn't know how to protect both of you, my son and my niece. From his pocket, he pulled out a small SEAL challenge coin, the trident engraved deep, the words etched beneath. To Stonewall, the sky will never forget. This was meant for you 3 years ago, he murmured. I was too much a coward to give it. I held the coin, its metal cold against my palm. Then I guess you're not a coward anymore. Sunlight slipped through the curtains, striking the table where the coin caught and scattered gold light across the room. He smiled faintly. That coin's been in my pocket every day since Yemen. Guess it finally found its way home. My phone buzzed. Liam's message. I lost the show. I lost everything. But I finally saw you. I'm sorry. I typed back one line. Then start listening. Douglas gripped my shoulder, his voice hoarse but steady. You've always been the strongest, Avery. I just took too long to say it. I stepped outside. The morning air cool on my skin, the coin warm in my hand. For the first time, silence didn't feel like punishment. It felt like peace. 3 years later, the world felt lighter. I was still in the Air Force, now teaching young pilots how to trust the wind instead of fear it. The morning sky over Bozeman stretched endless and clear, the kind of blue that seemed to forgive everything. My HH-60 climbed steady through the thin air, sunlight gleaming off the rotor tips. Below, the valley opened wide, dotted with yellow fields and quiet houses. Near the edge of town, a small barbecue flickered with gentle smoke. I caught sight of Douglas's silver hair, Liam beside him, and a little boy, Evan, running circles in the grass with a plastic pilot's helmet too big for his head. He stopped, looked up, and raised a small hand in salute. That's your Aunt Collins. I could almost hear Douglas saying, they once called her Stonewall. The rotor hum softened into rhythm with my heartbeat. Every sound that used to sting, the laughter, the silence, the chaos of Yemen, had blurred into something whole. I banked the helicopter slightly, sunlight flashing across the Air Force insignia. The wind rushed past my ears, no longer screaming, just singing low and steady. For the first time, the wind didn't sound like silence. It sounded like home, far below. Douglas and Liam watched, saying nothing. Their quiet now felt different, filled not with guilt, but respect. On the porch table sat a single coin engraved with Stonewall, beside my photo and uniform. The blades faded into distance, leaving only the hum of peace.